science to global actions. So the result shows that why actions really matter. So about 99% of the global ozone depleting substance has been dropped out this year, and we are expecting about the complete recovery of the uh, ozone layer is by 2066, which is including the Arctic and the North Pole. So the lesson is very simple here. Whether the fragile layers of ozone or the our own choices on conservation of energy, conservation of wetland and the ecosystems, that will create a bigger, better, brighter, bolder, stronger, greener, safer, cleaner impact to the environment, and it can save the lives on Earth. So to explore the fields of sustainability, we have a distinguished guest, that is Dr. TV Ramachandran from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, whose pioneering work spans from energy conservations and ecosystem conservation of ecosystems and wetlands in Western Ghat and Bangalore's lake information system, where the lakes are being managed in a more sustainable way. So Dr. Ramachandran has authored around 12 hundreds of publications, and he is a member of Karnataka's Wetland Authority since 2018 and Kerala's Wetland Authority since 2022. He is an globally recognized environmental scientist and an educator with multiple international fellowships. So now, without a further ado, now I would like to invite Dr. Ramchandran to lead us the path of sustainability and environment from here. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, good morning to everyone.
Good
Morning.
morning.
So, thank you for inviting me. Today is a very important day. So, there is a need to protect our ozone layer. So, now my talk is outlined like this. I'll be talking about ozone day for a few minutes. Then I'll take you to the spatial data. Then I will discuss how this data has helped in our analysis. Then I'll take you to my study region. Finally, as a researcher, how my science has reached the society. So this is the latest book which I have published because everyone thinks that forests and wetland do not have value. So that's where to bring awareness among the people, especially decision makers, we published this book. Now, as you Abhishek talked about World Ozone Day, it's a 38th year. So our job is to bring down the ozone depleting substances in our manufacturing and in our day-to-day life. So the theme, as he said, from science to global action. And we have been successful. So now I will not get into the details. We all know the electromagnetic radiation. If we don't have ozone layer in the stratosphere, the UV rays would have reached the earth, would have created havoc in the form of the various health issues, more importantly, the skin cancer, etc. So that's where we need to have the protecting the ozone layer so that we and our children would be free of this kind of the cancer, etc. This is the as you all know, the ozone occurs at two levels. One is the bad ozone, which is in the immediate atmosphere, while we are talking about stratosphere. So the ozone in stratosphere, the depletion of that ozone in stratosphere is the serious concern. It gives the skin cancers and less productivity of plants and loss of immunity to diseases, and also it impacts the plastics. Okay, so now there are certain substances, especially CFCs and halogens, found to be responsible for depleting the this one. There are the chemical reaction, the chlorine formation, which leads to the depletion. Especially the in electromagnetic spectrum, this is the the you have ABC UV, which is being absorbed by the ozone. That's how the UV was not reaching the earth. So now when you look at the problems related to the UV are the you have the various issues like skin cancer, and UVC is extremely harmful, damages DNA, but almost completely absorbed by ozone. So that's why we need the ozone layer. So now the chlorine, there are this one happens is the chlorine removes ozone from the stratosphere and also frees from the chlorine atom to begin the process all over again. That's where the problem comes. You have the when you release halons or CFCs into the system, the chlorination or this one that leads to the thinning or decreasing the layer of the ozone in the system. Okay. Now these are the some of the ozone depleting substances. If you can minimize using that, you have done your job. Whether it's aerosols or the refrigerators having the CFCs or any of the solvent cleaning product. That's why one has to be sensible. you know when we use this product, we should first avoid using that is the best way of this one. So that's why at Montreal in 80s the people met and they discussed about the implications. And of course there is also a history of the Nobel to the three scientists that made everyone to understand the implications of CFCs and its interaction with the stratosphere. So that is the ozone treaty is the first truly global treaty that offers protection to every single human being. You know, so that is what our earlier director of the United Nations talked about it, and it is based on the precautionary principle. That means if it is going to harm anyone, let us stop using it. Then thinking of sustainable development because it hurts the food productivity, the integration of science with policy, and recognition of the special situation of the developing countries. That's where the lot of support has come to the developing country as per the Montreal the protocol and need for international cooperation to solve the transboundary environmental problem. It is common but differentiated responsibility among the parties. These are all the international understanding among the countries. The precautionary principle, then common but differentiated responsibility because each countries have their own economic this one and technical capability. But we need to share the technology so that everyone can solve this problem. So now, with that, I will come to the science part of my research. My agenda of science is to ensure clean air, water, and environment to our next generation. That's where if you want to do that, you have to maintain the ecosystem integrity. Then only you can think about sustainability or this one. To maintain ecosystem integrity, you need a responsible decision making. That's where we need sensible citizens in the system. We can do the science, but unless we have sensible citizens in the system, it will not percolate into the decision making or for the action. you know Now you will get a flavor of how I teach at IISc. This is a simple food chain. When you look at the food chain, the food is produced by the producer during photosynthesis, and it sequesters the carbon at that time. That's where they are very important in managing the greenhouse gases in the system. And that food, what is prepared, is eaten by the next level. And finally, whatever is left in the system gets converted into elemental form by bacteria and fungi. Now, when you look at this, you as an engineers, you will also appreciate, you also get a flavor of the principles of thermodynamics. The energy and material transfer happens, and there is a law of entropy also. From one level to the other level, you have a loss of energy. That means when we look at this food chain carefully, there's nothing called waste. You see waste where waste people are there. So these are the examples of the people who constitute the fools who are creating the mess in the system, while the sensible people have this kind of lifestyle. I'm quite happy to see that you are all not using the paper cup and and that is a good sign of the sustainability because I have seen people talking about sustainability but invite me with the water bottle, the plastic bottle, and the paper cups, etc. That's where I avoid taking tea or anything in any organization, is because of that. Okay. Now, this is how the irresponsible people do. They cannot even carry the container to the hotel, but they get the food packed through this kind of polythene, etc., which is creating a mess. Now there are reports that the nanoparticles are reported in the bloods of the children and the humans. That means it's bound to, now it's sure that many on the earth will die of cancer. So, and it's very unfortunate to see our Prime Minister has to come to the street to clean the street to bring the awareness. So then, now with this, let us try to understand what is changes in climate. You know, when we look at the data, historical data, you see the temperature is changing and also the rainfall pattern is changing, which means there are changes in the climate. Now, the consequence of changes is you see the disasters have increased over the last the 2 decades. Now, if you have seen today's this one, you saw the flooding happening in the Dehradun, killing some people, and last week in Uttarakashi, then Himachal Pradesh, then in Jammu Kashmir, then sea level rise is happening. This is where Mumbai has to be very careful. So, if sea level rises, the Mumbai is going to disappear along with Mangalore, from where Mr. Pai also this one. So that is where our Goa, where he claims that he has moved to the Goa and this one, we will lose all of these regions. Okay. So then, now why the climate change is a problem? See, if you look at the sun, you see the coral bleaching. We lose 79% with the the 1.5 degrees Celsius increase in temperature, while I'll just okay, I'll continue. Where while with another 0.5 degrees Celsius, it shoots up to 99 the percent. Or if you look at the plants, insects, and the vertebrates, we lose six endemic species of insect. These are the pollinators. That means it does the pollination. Because of pollination, we have food. That means we will lose the agents of pollination. That means food productivity will come down, and we will lose eight endemic species of plants, and so is the vertebrates. So now, if you look at with another 0.5 degrees Celsius, the insects we lose is 18, and 16 plants, and the eight the vertebrates we will lose. So I'm not worried about humans getting lost in the system. Okay, so but the biota, that's where the thing, and about 350 million are going to be affected because of the drought, and which will become 410 million people get affected because of the drought with another 0.5 degrees Celsius increase in temperature. Or the sea level rise, 49 centimeter with 1.5 degree becomes the 56 centimeter with another 0.5 degrees, or about 15 million people get affected because of the changes in climate. Now, to summarize what I said so far, there has been a glacier melt, the flooding is happening, and droughts is happening, and the food productivity is coming down or will come down by 2100. That means it will hurt the food security, water availability, and cities become vulnerable, coastlines become they're more vulnerable, and more importantly, it also affects the public health. With the increase in 0.5 degrees Celsius, there would be an increase in the vector-borne diseases. That's where the diseases like chikungunya, dengue, COVID, etc. So now with that, let me come to the energy. How our the current decision maker talk about. They think that if the country has to prosper, per capita energy consumption has to go up. So now, though the India's per capita energy consumption is relatively low compared to the other countries, if you look at energy per the GDP, see, we are the 14 times higher than Switzerland, or 12 times higher than US, or the Japan is about 10 times the thing. That means we are inefficient to that extent, 14 times compared to Switzerland or the US or this one. That means our agenda should have been the energy conservation. The current problem is the inefficient energy use. So that's where we are. Of course, there has been a progress in the form of the devices, etc. So now, if you look at what is the scope for renewable energy, we have looked at this one. You see that the solar energy, the the kind of seasonal variation, if you look at only the 1 month in Karnataka has this one, but most part of this one you will have the solar energy. Similarly, the at this time, the wind also is this one. If you talk about hybridizing the solar and wind and also the bioenergy, then you have solved the problem. Okay, so that is where the one of the article which I wrote some time back is on the identifying the hotspots of solar energy, and of course that also helped the government of India taking the program in a big way. So that's where that's where planning commission took up our issue and all those things. Then this is the article which I published sometime in 2009. So now when you look at the we also map the what is solar potential, which part of the this see the entire country is rich in solar. So that's what it shows. And also the wind, some pockets have the higher this one. So wind power density, then of course those are the locations already the wind farms have come. So now the if you look at the sun, you look at the solar and the wind, it gives you an idea how to hybridize it. And of course, some of the things you are doing it. So this is the PV panel or the solar water heater, etc. When I started my career, I used to go to the villages to tell the villagers to use the solar water heater. And today, those villages, I see the higher rate of the penetration of the devices. That means we have to communicate to the people to see the things happens. Okay. Now this gives the bioenergy and biogas potential in the country. So that is where you can think about in the region where biomass is high. Think about having the kind of the plants which along with the solar that solves the regional energy problem. See, the problem of energy has to be addressed regionally than the top down approach. you know so that is where then we also looked at the biofuels. See, in all the water bodies you have diatoms or the microalgae. So we identify the microalgae which are rich in lipids. The lipids can be converted into biodiesel. This is the process you use, transterification or the breaking of the cell wall, etc. And we identified some of the species have the higher this one. So in some of the places we have recommended even the this one, biorefinery, so that you also have added product. When you manufacture biodiesel, you have the other biomass what is left in the thing has a cosmetic value. So you can have a multiple industries because of that. Similarly, we looked at the macroalgae. When you go to the ocean and all, you will see the macroalgae on the rocks, etc. These are some of the species that are there in the Karnataka, the coastal area. In that, after the macroalgae, you have the two processes where the macroalgae has the polysugar. You have to break it into simple sugar. That is where you do the hydrolysis, and then you will have the fermentation to get the ethanol. This one, there are technical things like simultaneous hydrolysis and fermentation. That's where identifying the organism which can do efficiently both hydrolysis and enzyme. My students are targeting that, and we should be able to identify that. Okay. Now, with that, let me bring to the ecological aspect of my research. See, I work in Western Ghat. My study region is from Kerala to Gujarat, and it's about 1,600 kilometer or a 1,60,000 square kilometer. It constitutes only 5% of the India's geographical area, but it is rich in diversity of the flora and fauna. Now, if you look at the plants and animal variety on the earth, as per the scriptures, for example, Rigveda talks about 8 to 12 million species. In science, we have said about 1.3 or 1.5 million species. Out of 1.3 or 1.5 million species, we know the biochemical composition of only 15%. Even before understanding the biochemical composition of the remaining 85%, we are degrading the ecosystem, we are losing them. So if we want the varieties of plants and animals, you need to maintain the ecosystem integrity. That is where conservation is required. You know, that's where one has to take up the conservation in a big way. It also helps in mitigating the warming of the earth and changes in the climate. In fact, if you conserve the Western Ghat, you have solved the big problem of the global warming to some extent. Okay. So now, if you want to understand which part of the earth has the highest number of plants and animal varieties, see the advantage of the varieties of plants and animal is that you will take variety of food. Those who take variety of food, their body gets the immunity. That means there are medicinal properties with varieties of food. Unlike the urbanites who take the junk food and they become junk in the system, this kind of thing will help. Okay, so now that's what I talked about. Biodiversity is for people. Now this is a variety of the distance. See, for example, this is in Uttar Kannada district in Karnataka. In one taluk, I found 54 varieties of rice. One is good for fragrance, other one is for yield, etc. If you just hybridize that, you got a better product. There's no need for a genetically modified crop or anything. We don't have to be slaves of the some of those the large scale players. And also the brinjal, if you look at in one village in Uttar Kannada district, I have 16 varieties. Some are so big. This is from coastal area of Karnataka, Udupi, the famous this one which is known for the. It also has a GI tag. Okay, so now which part of the globe has the highest number of varieties of plants? If you look at it latitudinally, you will see at 8 to 14-degree latitude has the highest number of plants and animal, which corresponds to Kerala, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and Goa part of Western Ghats. That means some of us have inherited such a rich diversity of plants and animal. It's our job to protect that and give it to our children so that they'll also enjoy the benefits of the varieties of plants and animals. Okay, that is where you need to manage the system. The management is ecosystem approach which integrate the physical and chemical integrity of the system. When you do that, you will have the biological integrity, which means the species that occur in a particular region can occur only in that habitat, provided you maintain the physical integrity without altering the ecosystem and maintaining the chemical integrity. That means without polluting the system. Okay, so now that's where we use the data to bring awareness in the people. We launched the satellites way back in 70s. Every 21 or 40, 30 days, we get the picture of the Earth. Now, when you have the picture of the Earth on temporal scale, you can analyze and find out what changes are happening. These are the various platforms. We have the satellite platform, which are launched over a period of time. The finally data analysis becomes the number, because depending on the amount of energy reflected from the Earth, the this analog signal get converted into digital format, which is in the form of number, and that number ranges from the number of bits used for the sensors. If it is a 8 bit, you have 2 to the power of 8. That means the number ranges from 0 to 255. Your job is to find out what is the number corresponding to forest, what is the number corresponding to agriculture, etc. So now when we analyze, we go to the field. With the GPS, we collect the training data and we use other collateral data. Along with that, and using artificial and machine learning algorithm, we do the classification of the remote sensing data. So these are when we use the machine learning algorithm, we use the both supervised and supervised classifier, and the non-parametric classifier are found to be good for the classification. Now we also, since we are handling the temporal data of the last 50 years, you can also predict. We use the agent-based modeling to predict what is the likely scenario. Now, with this background, I will give an example of Western Ghat, how the land cover is changing. The remote sensing data, that's a big data. With machine learning, we have classified what is the land use in this one. See, if you take a photograph of yourself with the camera in the front, you can make out your feature. But if you have taken a photograph from the top, only from your head and the shoulder, I have to identify this one. That is how we classify the forest, agriculture, etc. This shows that green is declining. Not only green is declining, green is also getting fragmented. That means forests are declining in our country and forests are also getting fragmented. Okay. So now, if this trend continues, what is likely to happen? We have predicted in 2031. Our prediction shows only 10% of the entire Western Ghats will have the evergreen forest, and the total forest area in the Western Ghats would be about 18%, not 33%. Okay, and the implication of the deforestation is the increase in temperature. You see that the Kerala will become warmer. That's what you are noticing already. Kerala has the chikungunya, dengue, and COVID. Even the recent COVID incidents also first reported in Kerala. So then there are rainfall pattern changes happens. The Kerala will receive low rainfall. And the other worrying thing is the intensity of rainfall. Rain is supposed to spread across the 4 to 8 months or this one. But instead of that, in a few weeks or few days, you have the high intensity rainfall. With that, you will have landslides and mudslides. When we wrote this article, I had written a paragraph here saying that Kerala is going to face the severe landslides and mudslides, and also Karnataka. In the concluding paragraph, I had said, and this was published in 2018. 2019, when it happened, this article was the people referred, and I thought that science has reached the destination, but after that again they forgot. Last year again the nature has warned us. Entire village in Wayanad got wiped out. You know that is the tragedy. Okay. So now we also look at what is the service provided by an ecosystem. So, for example, the carbon. I said that the vegetation traps the carbon. We have quantified how much carbon is in the above ground biomass, below ground biomass, and in the soil carbon. See, above ground biomass you can estimate by considering the girth and height of a tree. From that, using allometric equation, you can find out what is the biomass, and 50% of biomass is carbon. So now we got the total carbon. Our study shows 1.23 million gigagram of carbon is stored in the forests of the Western Ghats, and every year about 37,000 gigagram of carbon gets stored. Now, if you put it a monetary value as per the social cost of the carbon, it amounts to 100 billion rupees or a $1.4 billion. That is where this one. Now, you might ask, what is the use of this number? See, when I represent my country and take part in the international delegation, I tell the Westerners, this is the carbon what is stored in our forest is the carbon emitted by them, because at that time our country was not industrialized. So, and they have to pay the service charge because our forests have done the job. How much they have to pay? That's 100 billion rupees. If they pay that, then that is where we have the conservation, we have the money for the conservation. Okay. Now let's move to the next aspect, linkage between the forest and water. See, this gives you a picture of the water availability in the region in 1991 when I was moving in the forest as a student, and today in the same region in the monsoon period, I do not have the water. Now, it shows that how the landscape structure is decides the water availability. As you all know, the land is covered with the various features like the landscape is covered with forest, agriculture, and the functional properties of the landscape depends on the way the land is covered. If the forest is covered, their functions include hydrological cycle, biogeochemical cycles, etc. Now, to understand that, I will take you to a river basin. Way back in the 65, we constructed a dam. With the dam, there was this region got submerged with the reservoir. There were 179 villages were there. All those villages were forcefully evicted by the engineers at that time. They were dumped in a drier belt. What those engineers did is, as soon as the reservoir work is completed, they come to this region, they converted forest into agriculture land, and today there is a barren area. Now, if you look at this region, looks like this, whereas this part of this one looks rich in green cover. Or if you look at latest remote sensing data, you see this part of the catchment area of 1990 square kilometer has a good native forest, while this side is this one, degraded land. Now, now, this has affected let us see whether it has affected any of the hydrological parameter. Let us take up the rainfall. Today, rainfall data is available for 125 years. If you analyze the rainfall data for 1901 to 1964 and 1965 to today, you will see from 1901 to 1964, this entire catchment, that means this entire region was receiving the rainfall of 3,000 to 4,500, while 1964 to today, if you look at this region, where greenery is there, continues to receive 3,000 to 4,500, while this region, which was getting earlier 3,000 to 4,500, has started getting 1,700 to 1,000. That means it has impacted the rainfall in the region. Now, the another aspect is we divided this into sub catchment. For every tributary, we delineate a catchment. We found out what is the kind of the forest cover, etc. You see on the eastern side, that means this side, and this is western side. On the eastern side, if you look at the forest cover is the 30%, rainfall is 1,770. While on the western side, forest cover is 65%, rainfall is 4,800. Our forest cover is 60%, rainfall is 4,400. This highlights that the linkage between the forest and the rainfall. Then we also monitor the catchment, selecting the various catchment, one dominated by native species forest, another one with a monoculture plantation, the third one with agriculture, then the fourth one urban. Like that 32 location we selected, we put the sensors in the underlying layer to find out how much water get percolated when it rains. This region receives the rainfall for 4 months during the monsoon. Now, our study shows that wherever native species forests are there, because they are diverse, the roots are diverse. When the roots are diverse, the soil microorganisms are diverse and abundant. When soil microorganisms are diverse and abundant, the microbial activities are higher. When soil microbial activity is higher, it makes the soil permeable or porous. When soil becomes porous or permeable, it allows the water to percolate. It fills this zone, the groundwater zone. Then it fills this zone, which is a vadose zone or a subsurface zone. Then you see that only after the saturation of these layers, you will see a water flowing in the water body in the river or stream. Now, as I said earlier, the 4 months rainfall in this region. After 4 months, the water stored in this region moves laterally to the water body. That's how you have water for 4 months, next 4 months. And during summer, the water stored here comes to the river or stream or a lake for the next 4 months. That's how you have the water for next 4 months. That means 4 months because of monsoon, 4 months because of water from the Vado zone, and 4 months because of the water from the saturated zone. You have 12 months of water. But if there is urban area, nothing gets in. So only the flooding happens, and there is a water scarcity during the post-monsoon period. Now we have graded the streams as A, B, C, D. The A are the stream which carry the water for 12 months. It happens in the catchment with a forest cover of native species more than 60%. Where the forest cover is converted into monoculture plantation, you have 8 to 6 months of water within the water bodies. When we degrade the catchment with a forest cover less than 30%, you see that streams have water only during the monsoon. Now, to summarize what I said so far, this is the region you have 12 months water. Green are the 8 months, yellow is 6 months, this is 4 months. You just overlay the remote sensing data of the land cover. You see wherever native species forests are there, you have 12 months water. Wherever forests are fragmented, depending on scale of fragmentation, you have 8 to 6 months of water. Now, here the forest cover is less than 30%, you have only 4 months of water. Now, we also analyze how much water get infiltrated. Our study shows wherever forests are there, about 60 to 70% of rainfall get infiltrated. Wherever forests are degraded in the name of development, you see only 28 to 32% get infiltrated. We also looked at the demand of the people in the region in the form of agriculture, horticulture, then the livestock rearing, etc. You see the demand curve here, the red, the yellow, etc., and the resource availability. You see wherever forests are there, there is a more demand, but there is sufficient water. Whereas that means you don't have to remove the forest in the further development. There is a development happening there with the forest. Whereas the people who have looted the forest in the name of development, you see there is a scarcity of water. Okay. So now if you want to understand how it affects the farmers in the region, farmers in this region, because the water is available throughout the year, they can grow multiple crop or a cash crop. Their earning is 1,54,000 rupees per acre per year. While farmers in this one, they grow only the one crop. Their earning is 32,000 rupees per acre per year. Another interesting feature of our study is that in this region, yield of the crop is higher. See, as for example, paddy is as high as the 14 to 18 quintal per acre. Well, in this region, it is 6 to 8 quintal per acre. Now, when we looked at the causal factor or reason for that, we found that here pollinators are abundant, and because of that, pollination become efficient and yield of the crop is higher. Where here, because of the monoculture crop, there is not much pollinator. That's why the yield has come down. Now the government of India, Prime Minister talks about doubling the income of the farmer. My only suggestion is just allow the forest to be thrive where it is there. So the farmers in the vicinity, they can get what they deserve to get. So this is what we published sometime in the current science. See, earlier people who are engineers today, they are all graduated, my age group. They all graduated from looking at the literature from the West, where they said that if there are forests and trees, there is more evapotranspiration. That's why when they build a hydroelectric dam, first thing they do is the cutting of the trees. They don't even think about alternatives and all those things. So, but now for the first time, I have countered that theory, and I have shown that if the forests are there, people get the water, so that hydroelectric project can be run more efficiently than removing the forest and having the flooding in the region. Okay. Now, other advantages, see, this gives the distribution of animal in the region. The animals like sloth bear, tigers are there where water is there for 12 months. Where water is not there, only two-legged animal I saw. Okay, and also we discovered two fish species, Sistura nagodiensis and Sistura sharavandensis. This is unique feature of this fish is that it is a medicinal property. It is used for curing the bronchitis or asthma. So looking at the medicinal properties, I thought if I culture it in my lab, I also can become a billionaire. But unfortunately, this fish didn't have the medicinal properties. So when it was cultured in my lab, so that means if you want medicine, it has to be grown in its habitat. For the fish to grow in its habitat, it should have water for 12 months. For that to have water for 12 months, the forest in that area should be of native species. That means this fish tells us if you want water, you have to protect the forest. Okay. If you want medicine, you have to protect the forest. That's what the message here. Now let us take another example, the frogs. We call frogs as amphibian. That is because there are two stages in the life cycle. First stage is a juvenile stage or a tadpole stage, which is like a fish-like structure, so which requires the water. The next stage is adult stage, which is on the land. So now, because of the two different habitats requirement, for frogs are known as amphibians. Now, in one drier area in the Western Ghats, we saw the young frogs moving around. We were surprised. Without water, how these frogs are surviving? We come across the species Philatus leucorinus, and we looked at the fertilization of the egg. After 14th day, we saw the younger ones are coming out without tadpole stage. That means the frogs have learned, got adapted to a situation when there is a water scarcity in the region. So then we collected those fertilized egg to our lab and we monitor for 14 days. You see that on a 16th day, the younger ones emerged out in our lab. So that means with the global warming and the changes in climate, the earth will not have water. Without water on the earth, none of us will survive. So, however big we are, we have to pay the price. Only these organisms will survive. That is what this study tells us, and that's what we published in one of the journals some time back. Now, if you look at our earlier generation had protected the patch of forest, they knew that they will have water in the well provided forests are intact. That's why they protect the forest, a sacred forest or Devarakadu, etc. See, in the region from where we too come from, Devarakadu is quite prominent. South Canara, North Canara, and in Kerala and all those things. And even in Goa, their rice are there. Here also in Maharashtra, it is there. So the message is when you look at Shiva, as long as your hair is covered, his head, he retains the water, you have the water on the earth. So when you remove the hair, then there won't be water on the earth. Or to simplify that, when Mother Earth is covered with the green saree of native species, she retains the water, and we all have water for 12 months. When we convert that green saree of native species into synthetic saree, we will have only 6 to 8 months of water. When we degrade the catchment with forest cover less than 30%, we will have water only during the monsoon with the floods. Okay. Now let us try to understand what is sustainability. Abhishek told me they are from the ESG. So now let us understand. You are thinking of sustainability, which I learned from this lady. This lady told me, I noticed her collecting a one basket full of bivalves. Bivalves are the marine organism which has a shell inside that organism which has a meat value. So when I noticed her, she was not collecting more than one bucket, though that the mother and daughter are there. Both of them were collecting only one basket. When I asked her, she told me that when I sell this, the bivalves what I have collected today, I earn 350 rupees, which is sufficient for me to run my family. For tomorrow, I will collect again tomorrow. That's where she is making sure of the renewability. See, sustainability can happen in the system only if we allow the renewability, not by the glossy reports. You might prepare a glossy report with good photographs and all. That is not sustainability. If you have done it in the field and ensure the renewability in the system, then that means sustainability, you have maintained the renewability in the system. That's where the nature will have the equilibrium. Okay. Then we thought that the decision maker should have the appropriate tool to take the decision. That's where what we did is we took the entire Western Ghat, divided into 5 minutes by 5 minutes grid, the 9 kilometer by 9 kilometer. In each grid, we integrated various the parameters like the biogeochemical, the climatic,